Hello everyone and welcome back to Big Mouth. Today we talk about agendas and most importantly of all, the reaction to Venom by the critics and by the rest of critical media. I've been on sets and I can tell you people work hard. I've sat in writers' rooms. People work hard. So what people don't expect is a bunch of critics sitting in a theatre laughing at a movie, not because they find it funny, because they think it's that bad. There's no respect. There's no respect anymore. There was a critic in my day called Barry Norman. Now, he was a real critic. Now, he actually hated all mainstream films, and it was hard for a young man like me to watch him, but he was always respectful of the work people put in to the films. So now I want to talk about critical media's agenda. And their agenda is to hoist the MCU as high as they can, saying, wow, no one can compete. Look at Feige. Hey, Kevin Feige, can I stamp your name on my backside? Because basically that is their agenda. Every time an MCU film is released, it's, wow, best CBM ever made. And it's not. If you look deeper at the MCU, it's a bunch of solid, okay, entertaining, generic films. But that's not how the critics say. Black Panther, a major achievement. Maybe it's a major achievement because there was a predominant black cast, and that's great. But it wasn't a major achievement within the film. It was an okay, good film that I enjoyed. Best CBM ever made, you've got to be joking. Killmonger wasn't a great villain. They said he was, but they still say it. But Venom, which I have actually seen, and yes, guys, you can take your family to see, and it is awesome, and I'm not going to tell you anything but that. And when I've seen it I'll tell you what, once all the dust is settled later on, maybe when it's out of theatres and all that, we can do a proper review of it. But yeah, I really enjoyed it, right? And I know Grace Randolph really enjoyed it. Now, this is interesting because Grace Randolph was one of the few people who enjoyed Batman v Superman. But then she didn't like Suicide Squad and we fell out, which was a shame, but I just didn't like her reasonings. But anyway, so there are some echoes here. Some people think it's okay. Some people think it's a flawed movie. As I said to one of them the other day, there is no film or piece of art made by human hands that isn't flawed. But what really upsets me is this agenda. Now, bless his heart, right? Tom Hardy the other day talked about hours and hours that went onto the cutting room floor that they couldn't add. So the gender-driven, MCU-biased critical media and pundits decided to start printing on their sites, breaking news, Tom Hardy upset by a bunch of stuff that wasn't added to the movie. Do you remember how they did it with Jared Leto in Suicide Squad to stir it up? Yeah, they're doing the same thing again. Now, I hope we do get a Suicide Squad situation here where the critics hated it, but it made amazing money. And that's why we're getting Harley and the Joker, Birds of Prey, and Suicide Squad 2, which really pains them. The more they hear a DCEU movie getting greenlit, the more wound up they get and the more they try and stir up dirt. Isn't it interesting that while Patty Jenkins and Gal Gadot are getting their heads down, making Wonder Woman 1984, we've got Brie Larson winding people up and being all political and all the hate that we've had for that trailer as well. Meanwhile, Patty Jenkins and Gal Gadot are smoking their cigar, making a great film. This is the difference. Now, I quickly want to talk about Disney agendas because they have become very SJW, as I spoke yesterday with my Star Wars video. I saw it basically with what was the film? I forgot now. Incredibles 2. Sorry, I lost my mind. Yeah, Incredibles 2. Obviously, Mr. Incredible now being the house husband and things like that. Now, that doesn't trigger me or anything. We all listen. Everyone should do everything in life. There's no woman's jobs or man's jobs. Of course, there's not. And I would be absolutely offended if any guy said they shouldn't be working at home or being a house husband isn't a proper job. That's not the point. It's the aggression it's done with, isn't it? So But let's look at Disney, because Disney have got this reputation now of being this company that get everything right. So let's look at them right. Let's look at Pixar. Now, the guy who was working at Pixar, who was the architect of Pixar, who was the brain of Pixar, has now been fired or suspended because of sexual harassment claims. But Disney didn't headhunt him. When they bought Pixar, he was already there. They inherited him, right? Now let's go to Marvel Studios. Marvel Studios was formed about 3 or 4 films before Disney purchased it. Kevin Feige was already there. But what's really interesting is he wasn't having a great time in the early stages. And I'm yet to be convinced if he's the real architect of this success story. But anyone can make an MCU movie. It's easy. All they do, Feige's like the showrunner, right, of your favourite TV show. He plots out what he wants. He gets some director who can direct, and basically anyone who comes out of, movie school and film school now can direct, as long as you know how to. Basically, it's all about being a technical director these days. So your Francis Ford Coppola's and even your directors like Mel Gibson now, they're more all-round directors that they can get performances from actors. But these guys, these kids these days, if you can sit by a computer and edit and you can do good CGI, you're a great director. So this is the misstep now, because there are agendas. And I don't know what's in it for these critics, why they want to hoist the MCU and say it's the greatest franchise ever made, better than Star Wars. Let's get one thing straight. Yes, in terms of being a 20-plus successful franchise, a 20-plus movie franchise that's made buckets and buckets of money, yeah, no one's ever done that. But you'll never be better than Star Wars, because Star Wars made 3 amazing films. Has any MCU film been as good as A New Hope or Empire Strikes Back? Of course not. Of course not, right? Let's look at this logically. They've made 2 great films out of 2021, right? So that would be Avengers Infinity War, but really that's not even a film. Because that film is such bits and pieces. It's just a chapter-based film. So you can't even compare it to other CBMs, really. It would be unfair, wouldn't it? And then Winter Soldier, Captain America the Winter Soldier, is another great film on its own, away from the franchise. It's a great film. But as for the rest of them, they're just a bunch of popcorn-chomping, solid, generic films. But critical media have decided to hoist them on this. Oh, the DCEU will never get to the heights of the MCU. So why did the first 4 movies of the DCEU make more money than the MCU, if they're so superior? The reality is here, Kevin Feige should be congratulated. But at the end of the day, this agenda, and I don't know if Disney are behind it or not. I wouldn't like to say that. But what I would like to say is it's extremely suspicious. Now let's look at Venom. There's no Spider-Man in that film, right? Everyone blames the film. Everyone blames the people working on that film. Everyone blames Sony. That's not the case. When Sony and Disney sat down to discuss about Spider-Man being in the MCU, the deal was struck. Sony said, listen, we want a Venom universe. And Disney said, we don't want that. We can't do Venom. It's not what we want with the family-orientated, popcorn-chomping films we want to do. So I said, you can keep Venom, you can do animated Spider-Man, just let us do our own live-action Spider-Man. But you can never have him. You can never have him in your Venom universe. So Sony had no choice but to agree with that. Because the deal for Spidey to have a live-action movies on the MCU was a profitable situation for them. So they really didn't have much of a bargaining chip. So if you want to blame someone for no Spidey in Venom, don't blame Sony. Now, Sony brought in great filmmakers, a great director, one of the best actors of this generation in Tom Hardy. And his performance is magnificent, I tell you, magnificent. This is an entertaining, fun film. But instead of seeing it like that, these bastards, or translation, critics, have hated and disrespected this film. Why? As I said earlier, so they can hoist the MCU higher. This is not Lady Gaga fans. This is not DCEU fans. This is MCU fans. These are critics with this MCU agenda. And I'm telling you, if you can see that, and if that makes you angry, please comment down below, because it's about time we spoke up and educated people to what's going on, because they're going to do exactly the same thing to Aquaman, right? Now, later on today, we are going to find out the numbers on Rotten Tomatoes for Venom. Now, listen, I don't give a shit about Rotten Tomatoes. If Rotten Tomatoes turned into a site that gave away free tomatoes, I'd still stick my middle finger up at them, right? I don't like them. I don't like what they represent. And what we look at the numbers, right? Look at the points. Look at the tomato meter for The Last Jedi. That was outrageous. That shows you there is a bias and a corruption towards Disney. That shows you that already, right? So if you're interested in a film, just go and see it. Ignore Rotten Tomatoes. Look, it's a bit of fun to see how a film did on Rotten Tomatoes and all that, and on the tomato meter. But apart from that, don't go and say, yes, well, this film didn't do well on the tomato meter, I'm not going to see that. No, we've got to start using our brains now with films. First of all, we've got to stop over-analysing them and just enjoy them, like we did when we were younger in our generation. But then again, the generation I grew up with, I had people like George Lucas and Steven Spielberg to look up to. We had Star Wars, E.T., and films like that, Superman the movie. We had superior movies with superior filmmakers, and they didn't need critics to say if their film was good if it wasn't. That's the difference now. We've got to start using our brains, because it's nasty. It is nasty to say this film is awful, because it is not awful. This film is not awful. Anyway, comment down below. Tell me what you think. But I'm absolutely outraged by this, and it's about time we unravelled the situation. And I just want to finish off and say, repeat myself again. Literally, Disney inherited Feige. They inherited the Pixar guy. They're not geniuses. Look at the mess they've made out of Star Wars. Just think about it.